Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest installment of COVID-19 Real People, Real Perspectives. My name is Michael Spremuli. For those of you who are return viewers, welcome back. For those of you who are tuning in for the first time, I have one thing to say. I am wearing pants, unlike one of the news anchors who got busted recently, who was caught sitting there literally with his underwear on, and he was dressed from the rest of the waist up appropriately. So I do have pants on. For those of you who are new, you may be asking, what is this all about? Why am I doing this? Ever since this COVID situation started, my goal was to connect you with people from all walks of life so that you can get some insights as to how this is affecting and impacting everyone. In addition to that, I want to be able to let you know that wherever you are right now, it's not where you're going to end up. And things are changing, and people are in different stages of wherever they are in life as far as working, not working, trying to figure things out. So my goal is if you can get one nugget from an episode that will help you navigate this, then my job is considered a success. So let's talk about today's guest. I'm very excited to bring with you someone who is a master of what I like to call the pivot. What do I mean by pivot? Well, introduce for a moment here, take a look at Miss Paulette Ensign. Paulette has been in business as a small business solopreneur for probably over 30 years. She'll tell us in just a moment exactly how long, if I got that right. And she has managed to adapt to various situations over time when things changed. Economies changed, certain mediums have come and gone, and she's managed to figure out how to navigate through all different types of circumstances. So therefore, I figured it was a must to have her on the program. So ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paulette Anson to the broadcast. Paulette, thank you so much for taking some time to join us here.
Hey, Mike, it's my pleasure. Thank you.
By the way, I didn't tell you this, but you're participating in an experiment. You want to know what it is?
Yes.
Yeah, she says with trepidation. We're simulcasting for the first time live to both Facebook and YouTube. So hopefully my system won't crash. If it does, there's always the replay, assuming it's recording. Yes, it's recording. So Paulette has had a variety of experience. She's considered a non-traditional publisher, which should tell you a lot right there. She has a knack for looking at situations from alternative perspectives that the average person ignores. So I'm going to just dive in and first get a welfare check, so to speak. How are you faring amid the COVID-19 situation, and tell everyone where you're from in the country and just take the pulse of what's happening in your community, if you would.
Sure, I'm happy to do that. First of all, I am one of the fortunate ones. That hasn't always been my reality, but I'm so grateful that now it is. And as you and I have talked not that long ago, that you and I have trained for almost 30 years for exactly what we're dealing with now, of being home-based and operating our businesses with expansion, but nevertheless from home with the computer and the phone. Now, I've got a team of people, and I know you do too, that flesh out many of the services that we provide to our clients, and yet we're not having the same kind of adjustment that people who are used to working outside the home as a salaried employee or otherwise, that it's really easy, much easier for us to deal with that. As far as where I am located in mostly sunny San Diego the past 24 years. Before that, I was a Northeasterner. And
you don't say, and I say that with much peace and love.
Yeah, so it's exactly where I want to be. I knew that I had used up my East Coast energy at a certain point, and I needed a change. I love the fact that snow here is a choice, that it's within an hour drive if I chose to. And I promise you, in the past 24 years, it hasn't been the choice I've made. So you can be in any one of 4 microclimates within an hour, which is amazing.
So how are people overall in San Diego complying or not complying with the stay-at-home suggestions? We'll call them, because it's not a mandate. Are people following the rules, or are they kind of just doing their own deal?
It depends pretty much on your age and your intelligence. And I know that sounds a little bit harsh to say, but that is what the realities, the experiences have been showing. That the folks who are in the 20 to 30, 40 age have taken this a little bit differently. And the folks who don't realize what the real risks are have taken it very differently than the rest of us who were staying home until and only if there needs to be something really crucial to handle. The beaches here had been closed and until very soft opening this past Monday, yesterday. And even with that, it came with caveats that there's only certain things you can do, and that they're going to be allowing more things as time goes on. And there's observation of whether the folks have been observing what the limitations are. So, for instance, I have a website guy who I work with a lot for different client projects, and he surfs every morning. Well, he's been pretty cranky the past 6 weeks. And I emailed him on Monday afternoon, because I know he surfs in the morning. I said, "Feeling better?" ? And he said, "Yeah, people are pretty much behaving out there." So we're getting, it's the first signs of hope of starting to reopen things in a sensible way.
Well, it's good to hear that at least it sounds like a good chunk of the population is getting with the program. There'll always be those who won't. But sense and logic, data and science is what is needed now, in my opinion, more than anything else. But what do I know? I'm just a personality guy. So I'm interested
between
in
people thinking they're invincible. First of all, a certain age group, and we've been there. You and I have each been there.
Of course.
Absolutely invincible. And I was thinking about this last night, that maybe the way this all turns out is that because that has been the highest number of cases in that age group, that they will have it, they'll be getting through it, and they'll have the immunity. And that may end up serving the greater good with the least bit of harm.
Hey, let's hope. Let's hope. So I'm interested in sharing with listeners some ideas on pivoting. And I want to dial this back to solopreneurs, small business people, and even folks who may be out of work for the foreseeable future, where they don't really know what the next move is. As I mentioned in the opening remarks, you've navigated multiple pivots throughout your career, and as Elaine Stritch sings, in fact, I just posted something on my timeline that was a tribute to Stephen Sondheim, "You're still here," which means you know what you're doing and you don't close up shop. So give me some insight into your mindset when things start to hit the fan and it's like, ooh, okay, we may need to change directions. How could that be applied across the board to whomever may be in a situation where it's like, the old way is probably not coming back. What should I do?
Yeah, and as I've said to people, that I am walking evidence of the fact that, yes, I'm still here. I've never missed a meal in my life, which is obvious, and I've never been homeless, thank the goddesses. I have pivoted on numerous occasions, and sometimes a little late in the game, that I could have saved myself maybe a little bit of aggravation. However, lessons learned. I am now in my third career as an adult, and of the three, only the first one had paper. I taught string instruments in public elementary schools, and I loved it. And there were reasons that after about a dozen years, I said, okay, I need to be doing something else. And I then, before the industry even got really started and acknowledged, I very naturally, casually, common sense wise, became a professional organizing consultant and went into people's homes and businesses and helped them get organized. And as I mentioned, that was before the industry really got started. And I did that with a former neighbor who had been asking me for years to help her with the accumulated paperwork that she had amassed, mostly in her dining room table, but it had clutter crawl, so it managed to get into a lot of other parts of her home. And I was definitely in need of some money at that point, and I was not. I took a dive into the deep end of the pool when I left teaching because I was leaving something but not going towards something that I was conscious of. So that became a life, took on a life of its own. And I was a professional organizer, very active in the industry for many years. And then around the early 90s, the economy kind of zigged and zagged, and that's the only way that I'm willing to characterize it. And as I mentioned, I had formed these habits called eating and paying the rent and was not interested in breaking either of them, as you might imagine.
Yeah, me too,
And
especially
it's
the
funny,
eating part.
yeah, no kidding. I'm one of those people who eats to live. I don't live to, I mean, I live to eat, not eats to live. Got that one confused. At any rate, and from one foodie to another, I think we can agree on that.
I'm with you.
But nevertheless, yeah, nevertheless, I was really at odds because the sales cycle was getting longer and longer for the consulting and speaking I was doing as a professional organizer. And I really wasn't sure what was going to happen. And then somebody walked past me with a tips booklet, a how to, and it was 4 inches by 9 inches, fit in a number 10 envelope. And I looked at that, and I very glibly, as a former East Coaster, said, I could do one of those on organizing tips. And in my arrogance at that time, I threw it in the drawer and forgot about it for 6 months. Nothing had changed, and I said, where's that booklet? And I pulled it out, and I didn't have a clue what I was doing or how I was going to do it, but the plight of the firstborn carried me. I am a natural trailblazer, and I have strong survival instincts, as I think is pretty obvious at this point. And I did the booklet. I didn't have two nickels to rub together. Fortunately, at the time, I was dating a guy who owned a printing company. So I was able to get what turned out to be another learning opportunity because he hadn't sharpened his cutting edges.
I'm laughing. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I'm just laughing at the synchronicity here. It's like I happen to be dating someone who was in printing, and let's go to press.
Right. And the kicker was that in that relationship that ended very quickly after he printed a job that had no right angles on it anyplace, I had learned a few lessons. And I started by getting publicity by sending copies of the booklet to magazine editors who I invited them to excerpt from the booklet as long as they put the whopping $5 a price and how people could get their own copy. I sold 50,000 copies that way, one at a time. Tubs of envelopes were showing up, each with money in it. And that led to other things that I could not have done if I was doing cold calling all day long. And I couldn't plan for any of that. But many, many, many opportunities appeared. And again, every one of them was a learning opportunity. For instance, and this is a pretty profound example, I've never worked in a corporation, so I didn't know corporate speak. I didn't know things like marketing campaigns that were annual or quarterly. And I only had one product. So the conversation when I did find a human being was, do you want to buy this or not? And that was a 50-50 chance of making a sale. So I learned a tremendous amount. One of the things was that those folks who brought us those little square sticky notes,
Yes.
I had prospected and had conversations with my contact there, a cold call, for 6 years. Now, most people who know me don't put the word patient in the top 1,000 descriptors of me in the past.
I'm not saying
So
nothing.
to hang-
I'm not saying a word.
Yeah, right. Thank you very much. 6 years. I held on to this like a dog with a bone until my contact had one foot out the door to retirement, told me, well, your booklet doesn't match any of the packaging that we have for any of our products. Now, if you told me that 6 years ago, it would be an easy switch. However, that
Sure.
was a massive learning opportunity. And things like that happened along the way. And it means paying attention. It means listening. It means being open to things that were not on your own agenda, but serve to make the situation even better. And all of that stuff, I paid for that education, no question.
Sure. Sweat equity is what they call it.
Yeah. So the booklet ultimately went on. I'm going to put this more passive than it is. I ultimately sold. I'll put that very active. I personally sold well over 1.5 million copies of that booklet in several languages and formats without spending a penny on advertising.
All right, I
Which
got
made
to
it really
jump.
great when somebody.
Let me just jump in for a second and pardon my impulsivity, but that's how I'm wired. So I just want to recap. I want to just recap from what you said. So you went from teaching in an academic institution, not really sure where things were going to end up. Then you went into the organizing space. Then this kind of booklet fell into your lap, literally. And down the road, 6 years later, you've sold, over 1 million copies of the thing. I want that to sink in to those of you who are listening to this and think, well, people can only have that type of success if you're big guns and you've got tons of budget. You're living proof that you did it. You did it, and you didn't have to put in hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands of dollars. You found a way to make it work. And I think now more than ever, based on wherever people's careers end up, based on whether or not you have a job to go back to, that I think is a big takeaway that you shared, whereas we've got to figure out how to make it work. Is it going to be easy?
Yeah.
Probably not. Is it going to be hard at times? Oh, yeah. But if you're open to these type of shifts, for lack of a better term, then I think it positions you to be able to seize an opportunity when it comes up. And those who know me know I'm not a Pollyanna, and I think that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but would you concur with that statement from your own perspective, as far as you not being a Pollyanna either?
Correct.
That,
rubber meets road all the time here. Reality.
Rubber meets road, practicality, what's going to work. Yeah. So if you're out there tuning into this, either live or on the replay, and thinking, my life is over, no, it's not. Here's proof. It may get a little uncomfortable. We're all a little uncomfortable right now, and that may ebb and flow. But the idea is keep looking to see how you can pivot. All right, I just wanted to get that out. I'm sorry to derail you there, but
and I want to riff off of that. So that's a perfect leverage point here. The first year that I was in the booklet business, I sold 50,000 copies, 50,000 copies, one at a time. Very tedious and definitely very much a learning opportunity. Toward the end of the first year, one day I was taking the money out of these envelopes because I had hired a high school kid and I didn't want to put anybody at risk of accidentally taking green money out and finding it in their pocket. So I would take the money out and then I would hand it off to my high school assistant to do the licking, sticking, stuffing, and data entry. One day I'm looking through and I'm going, $5, $5, $5, $1,000, $5. Wait a minute, what was this? I didn't know what this person thought they were buying from me. And by the way, I had great access to any of the major manufacturers and retailers in the organizing business, but I didn't know the language. So I wasn't making inroads out of ignorance. So back to this $1,000 check. I'm pretty decent about identifying, at least for the starting place, what obvious markets might be for my products and services. Well, this $1,000 check came from somebody who, in a zillion years, no matter how creative, I never, ever, and I rarely do absolutes, I know for sure, I never would have had this person or this industry. The guy has an electrical manufacturer's rep firm in San Juan, Puerto Rico. Nothing about that to my mind. And not only that, but this was early enough that it was before the internet. And I called him and I wanted to know what he thought he was buying for the $1,000. And he said to me, "Well, I'm really interested in using your booklet, 110 Ideas for Organizing Your Business Life, as this year's holiday greeting out to my clients, my prospects, my colleagues, my next door neighbor. It's so generic that it really is applicable for just about anybody. And Paulette, is it possible that we could have our company name and phone number on the cover?" And I went, "Yeah, okay, fine." I didn't know how to do that, but I would get it done. Then he said to me, "Listen, I have a favor to ask you." And that was exactly the words he used. "I have a favor to ask you. Would it be okay with you if we keep your name and your contact information in the back of the booklet?" And I'm
No,
thinking to myself,
take it out. Yeah, I don't want it in there.
yeah, right. He tells me he wants to buy 2,500 copies and he wants to go to places that I would never reach on my own. Yeah, I think that would be okay. From that moment on, my entire business model shifted. It pivoted big time. And now I teach and my company oversees sales for our clients that are only bulk sales and licensing. No more single copies, nowhere near a bookstore. If you're on Amazon when you come to me, okay, no harm, no foul. It can't do you any, it can't be a problem for you. It's there, it's exposure, it's accessibility. However, the business model is bulk sales. So as soon as that guy sent me a little bit more money because, okay, I did upsell him just a little bit. I said to myself, this is so much better than $5 a pop and having to really break a sweat. So all went well and has continued to do well until the past couple of years when people were saying to me sentences that started with "everybody is" and ended with "everybody is online, nobody's printing." Well, first of all, that's not true. Second of all, I ultimately said to myself, instead of swimming upstream, let me see what I can do to reposition and rebrand. Because up until then, I had become known as the booklet queen. Now, I've been called worse in my life, but that one was getting a little bit old. And I wasn't sure, and Mike, as you know, I struggled for a while until I landed on the current rebranding. And that in that situation, what I realized is I didn't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater. I just had to change the sequence. And what that turned out to be is leading with monetizing the content. The booklet still stayed in there as what's available. And people come to our company with either a book already written that they want to expand their product line based on the content that is their expertise, or they come with no book at all and say the ever popular phrase, "someday I'm going to write a book." And they've been saying that for a long time. And I definitely help them to realize a book may not be even appropriate for what you're talking about. And there's been a variety of those situations. So now, when people talk about using their content to market, the rare thing that I have yet to see very much of that I have been bringing to my clients consistently is how to monetize your content, whether it is a Word document of 52 tips that represent your expertise, and I'll talk about that in a second too, about expertise, or whether it is a PDF or whether it goes into some other delivery format. And all of that is a composite of not only my vision, but more importantly, what people come to me with. They may have a half-baked idea that we can put it back in the oven, turn up the heat a little bit, and create it even more than they had imagined. So there's endless possibilities. And that with the book, very often, it depends again on what situation you're in. If you're in certain industries and certain professions, yeah, a book is required.
Well,
Publish or perish.
let me jump in with that, because I think you have to get clear as far as what do you expect the book to do. You don't get rich selling books. Lest anyone
Right.
think that, unless you are, a U.S. Times bestseller and you're given massive advances. But the book business is not how you make money. People say, oh, well,
No.
why are you mentioning people's books on here? I said, to let you know that they've got some experience. They're not going to make money based on you buying their book. But if you
Right.
take that information and repackage it, and if your goal is to then leverage your expertise, which I know you're going to get into momentarily because everyone has one, and you
Yep.
package it in a way that is set to monetize, that's a whole different ball game. And I know you've got examples, I think, of people who've had books that have been out there in the bookstores and did nothing, very little sales, but then you repackage that information in a way that people want it, and that's a game changer.
Yeah, and they get 4 and 5 digit payments at a time.
Yeah.
I could do that all day long. Thank you very much. And there are days that I do. However, the issue about expertise, I want to address that now
Yeah.
because that is a big deal. And it's perception. It's self perception, first and foremost. People say to me, well, I'm not an expert at anything. And that comes from a variety of backgrounds in their life experience. They may have been home raising kids, and they have not been financially paid for that. They may be an employee someplace, and they don't see themselves as an expert on anything. I am here to tell you, no matter what your life experiences have been, and no matter what age you are, young, middle age, old, whatever, you've got expertise that somebody else values. There was a phrase years ago that I heard that fits this situation perfectly, that to a third grader, a fourth grader is God. That somebody who's even just a chapter ahead of you is an expert in your eyes, and that nobody knows everything on any one topic. When you think about if you're a foodie, like I passingly mentioned a little earlier,
Sure.
and you enjoy cooking, and you like a particular cuisine, you could have every single cookbook on that cuisine that you could get your hands on, and there's still more being published every year.
Yeah.
So somebody knows something you didn't know. And it's a question of having a mirror held up to you where you see a slightly different image that really is aware and acknowledging and honoring the fact that if you had a couple of kids that you took on a cross-country trip and you managed to find ways to keep them from driving the adults totally out of their minds, that's expertise that some other parents want to know.
Yeah.
And that in fact, very likely car dealerships or children's seats, infant seats in the car, or any accessories, all those manufacturers might find your booklet on tips of how to keep your family from going totally out of their minds on a cross-country trip. All of a sudden, that's a game changer right there. So whatever it is that you enjoy doing, that you are very comfortable doing, that you've done enough so that you know that it can be replicated, that it wasn't just a flash in the pan.
Right.
Somebody else needs to know that. Mike, there was one example that I used to give that I think merits it right now. I'm definitely somebody who appreciates and really requires neatness, not to excess, but my threshold is a lot lower than a lot of other people that I know when it comes to neatness. And
Was that
I'm
a
not great
silent
on
jab?
cleaning.
Was that a silent jab? Is
Not
that?
at all. Not at all. No,
Nah, listen.
this is some of my best friends are,
Thank goodness that the camera only sees what the camera sees, because if you saw what was going on around me here, you'd probably run for the hills.
It's okay. I don't live there. My point, though, before I lose my own track, is I was walking the county fair here in San Diego a few years ago with a very close friend of mine. And I have no clue how the conversation turned this way. But she said to me, well, you could use vinegar to clean that. And I went, excuse me? She said, yeah, white vinegar is a cleaning agent. Now, I've traveled a lot of the journey in life, and I've got a lot of experiences, and I cop to having only 3 extra brain cells, not more. That was the first that I was hearing that white vinegar was a cleaning agent. And it made a world of difference. Now, that's a perfect example of something that you may take for granted that somebody else is going, this is a miracle. This is the greatest thing that, you've helped me tremendously. And I'm not puffing that up because I don't do that kind of thing when I work with people. I bring reality to the situation, and that it's an underdeveloped gem, a piece of gold, something very valuable that has been undervalued because we take it for granted.
Yeah.
Mike, you mentioned that I'm good at pivoting. Originally, that came out of desperation. However, now I realize that is one of the things that I enjoy doing. I enjoy looking at something and saying, what more can it be? Not to get rid of it, but how can we expand and contract that so that you've
amplify
got
it
a product line?
And to amplify it and actually have more punch than what it is in its original form. Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. At different price points, at different learning styles, so that people really truly, the conversation that I mentioned earlier about when I only had one product, it was, do you want to buy it or not?
Right.
Now the conversation is, which of these products is our starting point? And you immediately raise the bar. And for those folks that have any issues around the word SELL, what I like to suggest for those folks that kind of get, squirrely about that whole concept is we're talking about visiting with people, bringing your enthusiasm, getting it all over them in the process of helping them. Now, if you translate what I just said,
Yeah.
it does, in fact, come down to marketing and sales. However, sometimes those other words feel easier to digest. And I'm not mocking anything. I am absolutely serious about what I just said. I know several people who can sell ice to the Eskimos as long as you do not say those words.
Yeah.
So I honor that.
Well, and I think, and this is a whole rabbit hole that I don't want to go into, but just for the sake of clarity, sales over the years of any type have gotten a bad rap because people think of the 1980s slimy salesperson saying, well, do you want to set an appointment for Tuesday at 4 or Wednesday at 3?
Right.
And that's not what we're talking about here. I mean, one of the whole things that I speak on is the ability to build genuine relationships with people.
Yes.
And if you're keeping it real and you've got something of value and you connect it with the right group, at the end of the day, we're all salespeople, really. I mean, a kid sells their parents that they want chocolate cake. If you're going in to apply for a job, you got to sell yourself. So sales is part of life.
Yeah. And what couple doesn't sell an idea of a vacation to the other part of the couple?
Right.
I mean, I want to go here. No, I don't think I want that kind of a vacation. But honey,
Yeah.
same kind of thing.
So I could literally talk to you for days, but unfortunately we're hitting our limit here because, everyone's attention span is frayed these days. I do want to ask you a couple of concluding things. For someone who may be out there right now who is not sure what their next game plan is or their next move, and they're thinking about, well, I really know, I'm an expert on how to ... fill in the blank, or I know how to repair ... If they wanted to even just dip their toe in the water, and I'm not suggesting that everyone go out and create content if they don't want to. It's certainly not a panacea. But if there's something that you're passionate about, where do they even get started? I mean, like, do they just put pen to paper and just start capturing stuff? How do they start to begin to organize that to see if it's something they want to pursue?
Well, that's a really excellent question, because starting is the most difficult for just about anything. When I was a musician, people would say, "Isn't the violin really difficult?" And I would say my piano playing friends had the same problem of just lifting the lid on the keyboard. So getting started,
Yeah.
if you're not, to get started, what I would suggest is go to the homepage of my site, where you're going to see samples of tips, so that you get a sense of, we're talking the same language about tips. It's usually about 50 words maximum. And I do it very formulaic, with the first sentence telling the reader or listener what to do, and the second sentence following that is how or why. Now, people have said to me, "Can I write my own tips?" Absolutely, it's possible. A lot of people screw it up, but nevertheless, it is doable. But that's not the heavy lifting part of it. What are you going to do with it once
Yep.
you've got
Yep.
a manuscript with 52 tips? So take a look at the tips, and then you've got a couple of options there. I do visit with people and do some strategic sessions, and you'll see that possibility on one of the pages there. And another area is crafting a manuscript for you. So either of those is a good starting point. Let's say you've got a passion about something and you want the world to know about it. Or even if you're not sure if there is a need, that's something that I can help you identify as well. Those are the easiest places to start. You don't need to bootstrap it like I did 25 years ago,
Right.
because it was an expensive bootstrapping. I'll tell you that.
It does get
Time,
costly.
energy, and money.
So, and what is your website for people who want to maybe just kind of look around and see what's going on,
Sure.
and maybe dip their toe?
Right. The website is tipsproducts.com. That's tipsproducts.com. Don't lose your S along the way. Both tips and products are plural.
See, that's marketing
so
right there.
it's-
That's marketing. You put in a little subtle hook to get people to remember. Don't lose the S. I like that.
Yeah. Mike, this has been so much fun talking with you. I know both of us could talk to each other
I know.
endlessly, and sometimes we have.
So final comments for people who are out there just feeling paralyzed, because there's a lot of that going on. There's a lot of people who just they don't know how they're going to get through the week, let alone next month.
Right.
Your thoughts?
Yeah, my thoughts are, take that anger and repurpose it. So you're pissed off about, you fill in the blank, because I don't know too many people these days that aren't really compressing and repressing some kind of anger about the situation. What is it that you're angry about that you want to be different? That's another basis right there for creating a saleable set of products. No question about that. And otherwise, if you're really tuned in to, you've been passionate about some area of something for a long time, but the story you're telling yourself is, "I don't have time to do it. I don't have time." Start jotting down a few things as they come to mind. And before you know it, you may be up to more than 52 tips.
Excellent advice. Again, Paulette's website is tipsproducts with the S, don't lose your S along the way.com. And I thank you so much for taking some time to share your insights with the art of the pivot with our listeners.
My pleasure, Mike. Thank you.
I really appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes another installment of COVID-19 Real People, Real Perspectives. Tomorrow, we've got something totally different planned for you. We're going to the movies. What is this, I say? Well, you'll have to tune in to find out. But it's going to be a fun episode, something totally different than what we've done thus far. In the meantime, thank you all for watching, regardless of where you're seeing this, whether it's live or on the replay or on YouTube or whoever else knows where this ends up. I appreciate that. If you'd like to be considered to be a guest, I'd love to have you. Drop me a note in the comments or send me a direct message. I'm pretty easy to find out there. In the meantime, I think we all know the drill. Be safe, wash your hands, and just stay at home. Thanks so much, and bye for now.